Hi guys, and welcome to a new devlog of my indie game Raidborn, which is a sandbox action RPG set in an adventurous fantasy world. Follow me along and enjoy interesting behind the scenes footage and actively participate in the development of the game. But now let's see what I have for you today. Fighting hordes of enemies. A new combat stance animation. Improved lighting visuals. So some time ago I did this Instagram post here showing an AI fighting against this white cylinder, and somebody named BP9.art suggested that it would be cool if NPCs assumed a combat stance when entering combat instead of standing upright all the time. That is what he literally said, and I think that's actually a pretty cool idea, and now finally is the time to implement this feature. So thank you very much for this cool suggestion. After I found some cool reference images just to get an understanding of how people look like if they are in combat, I opened up Blender and started creating this new animation. Of course, I had to do it for all of the different weapon types like sword and shield, the two-handed weapons, and also the staff weapons. After that was finished, it was time to implement a new animation to Unity's Mech Anim system and to add it to the animation state machine you can see here in the background. This also included some coding and to set everything up, but ultimately this was done relatively quickly. So now let's take a look at the final result in game. And again, I would like to say thank you for this suggestion. I don't know why I haven't seen this myself, but it looks so much better with this new animation instead of just standing there. And I don't know why that happened. I just created idle animations and I didn't thought about creating a dedicated combat idle animation. And yeah, here you can see it, and I think it's really looking much better, and overall I'm very happy with the visual quality of the animations now, although I still have that slight problem with the leaning where characters lean in the wrong direction sometimes. You remember I implemented this in one of the last devlog videos, and I already mentioned there that it has some issues, and I will try to fix them sometime in the future. The next step on my list was to work a little bit on the windows in the game, because the models had some issues. The windows were too large a little bit, and also sometimes were in the wrong position. So the way I create the windows is actually pretty easy. I'm using a so-called Boolean modifier, just taking a normal wall, and as you see in the background, I'm using those boxes to cut out an area from the wall where then will be the window. I will just put the window on top of that, and this is how the window creation process kind of works. Of course, I have to do some cleanup because there will be some unwanted geometry, but overall it's a pretty straightforward process. Next, I created some light cookies in Photoshop to save some performance and also to improve the quality of the shadows. What is a light cookie? Well, basically it's just a texture which gets projected as a shadow instead of doing a very performance-heavy lighting calculation, so it saves performance and it also increases quality of the shadow at the same time. After I imported them into Unity, I set them up and assigned them to the lights so they use the light cookie instead of doing the shadow calculation. And here is how it looks in the game, and I really like it. You know, I played around with a lot of values, tried to set up this volumetric effect, the lighting and everything, and I'm really happy with the result, but I'm also curious to hear what you think about it. As you may remember, last time I talked about not being able to export the game and to see how well the performance actually is. Well, it was time to fix that and for the first time ever export and play the game. And after I got rid of the errors which caused the issue that I can't export the game, it was time to click the play button and see how the game looks and how well the performance is. So here we are in the game. I changed the scene a little bit, added some more effects, and overall adjusted the color grading and stuff. And surprisingly, the game runs much smoother, although the FPS are a little bit lower because, you know, I added those additional effects and stuff. Because last time I had around 140 FPS in the editor, but I have to say the FPS counter in the Unity editor is sometimes a little bit weird, so I don't really know what's going on. But ultimately I have 19 FPS here, although I also don't know if that is accurate, because, you know, that FPS counter here on the left hand side, I coded them myself and I don't know how accurate it is. But it's very cool to play the game, kind of, you know, for the first time. Next, I worked a little bit more on the wall models because they had some leaks, and if you have watched my full dungeon walkthrough, you may have noticed that there sometimes are light leaks, and there are generally leaks inside those walls, and they have some kind of artifacts and stuff I don't really want. So I was just fixing the walls, making them align perfectly and stuff like that. I also made the ground tiles more tileable because they also looked a little bit weird if you just place them on the ground, and I really wanted to get all my assets to be really ready for a beta version, for a more final version, and that everything looks clean and aligns nicely. Then I also created some double-sided walls because, as I have mentioned before, normally you don't do that. You know, normally you create just one-sided walls, and if you look to the walls from the back, there is nothing to see. There is no model data. But sometimes you need double-sided walls. For example, if I have different rooms inside a house, sometimes you may be able to see two sides of a wall. So I need double-sided walls. That is what I have forgotten when creating all these new walls, so it was time to do it now. After that, I also created some new doorways for wall types I created in one of the earlier devlog videos, where I created some new walls, you know, this kind of clay wall here, and I just forgot that I also need doorways for these kind of walls. So I just fixed that very quickly and again made use of the Boolean modifier I introduced before. And now, to celebrate that you've watched so far, I have some very cool combat footage for you, where I spawned hordes of enemies and gave myself a completely overpowered and mighty axe to slay them down and show them who's the boss in the room. And what should I say? It really was satisfying, and I think that's a good sign for the combat system, and I'm pretty happy with what it is at the moment. But judge yourself. Now I'm curious what you think about all the new stuff, the new lights. Do you like them? Do you think they look good? What do you think about the new combat stance animation? What do you think about the footage I just showed you of slaying hordes of enemies? Tell me what you think about it. I'm really excited to read it, and as you see, I really listen to your feedback and try to implement it. So just tell me your thoughts and I will read every single one of them. Stay cool, have a wonderful day, and see you next week.